The story begins in a room where we see a boy sitting on the bed. This boy is the ruffian son of a high-ranking noble family. He reigns over the academy like a king. This good-looking guy is Ed Roth Taylor, the protagonist of this story. Ed is reading a letter that states that his family is removing him from the family registry for committing a sin in the academy. He feels like the god of fate is ridiculing him. The next day, the maid throws him and his belongings out of the dormitory and thanks him for his hard work during his time in the dorm. The students in the school begin to take notice of him as he sits on the bench with his belongings. A student asks what is the point of walking on eggshells around him now. Apparently, he was disowned, so he even emptied his room, and the other response, then we wouldn't see him next semester. He shouldn't have rigged the entrance exams in the first place. Filthy noble, I knew this would happen. But Ed isn't paying attention to the gossiping students, he just keeps wondering what is going on. In fact, honestly, this is unfair because the arrogant Ed Roth Taylor these people are talking about, it's not him. We find out that the MC has entered a game based in a magic school called Sylvania Academy, his favorite game, the failed swordsman of the Sylvania. Usually, when you enter a game inside webtoons, you possess either the first one son of a chaebol, a genius ruffian young clan, or an SSS rank hunter character who breaks the rules. And of all the possibilities, he is a third-rate villain who gets kicked out of the dorms at the beginning of the game, Ed Roth Taylor. He possessed the worst of characters at the worst of times. He screams, "This isn't fair. You can't be serious. I've always lived a frugal and simple life without any greed." Bystanders make fun of him for claiming to have lived a frugal and simple life, they call him a scumbag and a shameless person. Ed silently sits down and the other students walk away. He suddenly notices a stats window beside him and it shows his information. He wonders if the stats are real. It shows that Ed has stamina 3, intellect 4, talent 7, and willpower 7. He thinks the original body owner is attending the faculty of magic, yet his intellect is crawling on the floor and stamina is just as low even for a noble. No wonder he was originally just a third-rate villain who appeared in the early scenarios. Even in the protagonist's memories, he's basically a blur. He can't even recall what happened to him later on in the story, but he suddenly remembers what happened. In the corner of the end credits, he was begging, looking like a damn bum. He thinks there's no surprise there that the ruffian who knew nothing about the world was suddenly thrown onto the streets. He was even lucky to be alive. But the protagonist wonders why he had to possess this body. He doesn't know the reason for this, nor does he have any way to find out. But Ed won't let that be his ending. He stands up with his belongings and declares he's going to make it no matter what. Rather than a school, the academy is closer to being a city with an entire Arlen Mountains as its premises. This place is in the northeast of the academy, the undeveloped forest. The protagonist was trying to escape the prying eyes of the students and ended up walking for half a day. That's plenty of time to understand the situation he is in. The point when Ed was just disowned, was the extreme starting part of the scenario. Fortunately, even though he was disowned by his family, he had not been expelled from the school yet. This is extremely important because, in a setting, Sylvania Academy is a top-notch academy. And as long as you graduate from the academy, you are guaranteed a secure future. And as long as the game is set in the academy, he can use the intel of a 5-time dedicated player of the game to its fullest. That means if he just graduates quietly, he can live a way more comfortable and awesome life than the one he left behind in the past world. So obviously, his goal is to graduate from Sylvania Academy. The most pressing issue is the enormous tuition fees. The current semester has already been paid for, so if he can just get a scholarship for the next semester. Before he can finish the sentence, he realizes that with his current stats, it will not be possible for him to get the scholarship. In fact, he will be lucky not to flunk. He can think about the tuition later, but first, he gotta think about the urgent matter, which is food, clothing, and shelter. The primary needs to survive in life. For around the next week, how can he avoid turning into a bum? All his belongings are worthless, but at least he has enough clothes, which leaves the other two, food and shelter. The problem is that he does not have a place to stay or food to eat tonight. And given the original owner of the body's reputation, it will be hard to get a job. He cannot go to the dorm he was kicked out of either. So he guesses he is stuck in the woods for the time being. He is glad there is at least a stream nearby. He has 10 days until school starts. Until then, he will make himself suitable for attending school. Some time passes and we see Ed casting wind blades to chop down wood. He seems exhausted and is glad his body can use spells. It's fascinating, though. He is seriously exhausted to death after cutting just 15 tree trunks. All this work made him hungrier. It's not that useful. He complains that the dorm should at least feed him before kicking him out, and if he gets hungrier when he uses magic. He remembered something. His grandfather told him when he was young, that when barley hump hit when he was a boy, he said he'd eat tree bark in the back mountains. Ed uses a spell called ignition to warm the tree bark so he can eat it. Some minutes later, he's done and thinks if you don't look closely at the tree bark it looks like chicken breast. He starts to eat the tree bark and realizes just how awful it tastes. By day 3, Ed looks like a zombie and declares he hates Grandpa for giving him bad advice. After starving for a day and throwing up for 2 days, he came to the conclusion that wood should be used for building houses alone. First, he needs to raise the frame that supports the wood. He only has 2 hands, but there are 4 supports. This really isn't an easy job. Ed falls and the woods collapse onto his back, but Ed struggles to get back up and ties the woods together. The shelter's frame is finally complete, but there is still a long way to go. He can't continue to sleep on the bare ground, after all. It's kind of a waste of. But it's not like he had a choice. The next day, Ed was done with his wooden tent which he barely managed to finish. He then gets a notification from his system telling him that his creation is complete and that his crafting proficiency has increased. He gained a novice craftsman in his life skills details. Handiness is level 4, design is level 1 and gathering ability is also level 1. Ed's stomach starts growling but he ignores it and wonders about his crafting systems popping up. Ed lived his life as a noble so he may not have known about this. In fact, it turns out he is far more talented with his hands than with magic, and right now the current owner of the body needs that handiness. Not long after, he receives another crafting notification for crafting a simple low-level harpoon with the dagger he had before. He then heads to the stream nearby to hunt for something proper to eat. At this point, he has gone 2 days without any food to eat and excessive physical labor. He is sure he shouldn't be able to move right now, yet. It must be desperation that is keeping him moving. He wants to eat meat. He manages to catch some fish and later he uses his magic spell, ignition, to roast the fish. With a week still left to go until school starts. He just has to hold out as he is right now. If he simply manages to hold out until then, he will be able to get through school without much trouble. While Ed is eating, suddenly someone addresses him. To his shock, he was so busy surviving that he forgot something important. Which is the main characters. A girl shows up beside him and calls Ed Roth Taylor. But of all the people, he didn't expect to run into her over here. We get a flashback to the time he was about to be punished, and someone is telling him that he doesn't have the slightest sign of remorse. So he should disappear from this academy to be the same girl who appeared beside him right now, and she is Princess Phinia. She asks Ed why he still hasn't left the academy. Princess Phinia is the person who kicked Ed Roth Taylor out of the dorms. The protagonist explains what happens for Ed Roth Taylor to be kicked out of the dorms. Ed Roth Taylor is a villain who appears as soon as you start the game. Using his status as a noble, he hits on the MC's childhood friend. Only to end up being punished. Not stopping there, with a vengeful heart, Ed maliciously adjusts the MC's entrance exam for Sylvania Academy but is then caught by a girl who came to take the entrance exam while hiding her identity. This girl is Phinia Elias Kloll, the Kloll Empire's 3rd princess. The Princess of Kloll activates her ability of Insight, which detects the target's lies and conspiracies. Ed Roth Taylor, who was caught in a sad state, gritting his teeth and making excuses, had all of his lies exposed by Phineas' insight, and then chased out of the dorms. Everyone at the academy must hate Ed Roth-Taylor. Back in the present, Princess Phineas is questioning Ed what he is still doing in the school. This is all just bad luck since he met someone that he shouldn't meet the most. The princess asks if Ed is saying that the academy isn't expelling him. Ed tries to explain that he is still a student here, he was only just chased out of the dorms. The princess gets furious and shouts at Ed to leave the academy because she can't stand to see a shameless person like Ed around this school. She promises to talk to the academic department and personally request his expulsion. For the crime of committing a dishonorable act as a student of the academy. For the crime of setting up a fellow student in an attempt to block their path to a better future. But Ed being as hungry as he is only worried about his fish burning. It's burning. After starving for 3 days of his precious food. Ed shows an annoyed face because he thinks the crazy girl will keep it short. While the burning of food is an issue, this is a life crisis in many ways. This princess really has the power to get him expelled. Since that's the case, Ed menacingly approaches the princess and tells her that the sun will set soon and that aren't the royalty always guarded by heavily armed soldiers. To think that a noble princess would come to an isolated forest like this alone. The princess tells Ed that if he is trying to threaten him knowing that she doesn't have escorts, then he will surely regret it. Ed responds that he is not threatening her, he is simply trying to thank the princess. She activates her ability and is shocked to find out that he is telling no lies this time. She is confused by this fact. And Ed notices she looks shocked by what he said. The Roth-Taylor family that Ed belongs to is famous and influential. But using that name to exploit the citizens and doing human experiments for research into eternal life, to the protagonist, it's a trash family that is destined to be destroyed. The people of the family will be imprisoned or executed. However, since he has been disowned, he is excluded from this tragic fate. We see the fish getting burnt so that it cannot be consumed. He continues to explain that he may be cold and hungry right now, but it's still better than dying. In the long run, it's rather good. So he needs to convince the princess of this without lying. Or else he'll be expelled and it would be game over for him. Looking at the timeline, around the time Ed is expelled, right now should be about a week before school starts, then what would be the reason for the princess to be here? Ed tells the princess that she has come here without any escort and in simple clothing means that she must be completing the class placement test. This turns out to be true. She is completing Professor Glast's class placement test, which is a test to find magic beads hidden in the forest. Ed knows Professor Glast is known to be quite vicious. So of course, if it's the princess, she is aiming for the best class, which would be Class A. The princess angrily questions him if he trying to flatter her. He hasn't changed a bit. As expected, she should request the academy to expel him right. But before she could finish yapping, he told her without his help, she will never be able to enter Class A. He tells her that if his words are lies, then she can have him expelled. As the princess moves through the forest, the words he says keeps guiding her towards a tree at the lake and the southeast part of the forest where there is a small grassy island with a giant tree in the middle of the island. The tree is called Marilda's guardian tree. Underneath the tree, she finds the magic beam she's looking for. She remembers the Ed from 3 days ago was definitely a liar and a charlatan. She still vividly remembers that sad state. However, the Ed just now is completely different from the other one. She starts to wonder what will happen back at the academy. The class placement test has officially ended. In a class, Professor Glast asks them to take out the beads they acquired last week. Several students show off a bunch of creepy things they found, leaving the professor speechless. He turns around and tells them they will all start from Class F. It is important to take notes of the examiner's intent in the test. This test isn't just about finding any magic bead. The professor tells the students that those who found magic beads that were lacking in magic power are the only ones to make Class A and that only 3 of them found the right type of bead, Zix, Lortel, and lastly, the one who found a bead at the guardian tree of Marilda that had unusually high magic power. He calls out the person who found the hidden bead, which is the princess, and she will be at the top of the class. Back to the present, Ed seems to be still upset about the fish burning up, and since he has no strength to use a spear anymore, he decides to craft a fishing rod instead. The third princess of the empire, since she was young, she has been able to see through flattery and sophistry, thus sharpening her insight, which leads to the creation of her innate skill. No one ever can escape from her insight. As such, there was no choice but to give her authentic information. But that also leads to a greater problem. The reason why the prideful princess would come to be called the Princess of Love. After facing failure during the class placement test, falling into Class F, she would then begin to change. However, if the princess, who has great influence over the early scenario, finds the golden bead and enters Class A, the scenario of the original story would collapse. Even if he manages to avoid being expelled, all-day information would become useless and he'll be done for. Of course, top of the class, Lucy Merrill. The future might still not change. The princess keeps wondering if insight will always see the truth. There was really a bead and Ed didn't lie. Though, this isn't a present. Why did the princess hide her identity in the first place? She was embarrassed of the special treatment she would be receiving had her identity been exposed. She wanted to prove herself. She knew that seeing that bead it would open the best results in the test. But she couldn't take that bead, as finding it would be something that she didn't accomplish on her own. The title, Princess of Love, she would receive in the future is not a skill or stat, but a title she would gain by walking the righteous path.
Ed throws bait at the princess by telling her she will never be able to enter Class A, and if his words are a lie, then she can have him expelled. Whether it was the truth or a lie likely didn't matter. She can always discern which it is, even if Ed really believed that the princess would fail the test. She had confidence in succeeding and rubbing it in his face. However, Ed did not lie, as she wasn't able to enter Class A. The princess now could no longer do anything, and swears to keep her eyes on Ed Roth-Taylor, and the person in question is happily celebrating catching a fish to roast. School starts today, and we see Ed running to get there on time. Ed is upset. He is living in a place where he has to start running from early in the morning to get to school in time. He finally reaches the school, and shortly, an announcement is made that the school opening ceremony shall now begin, and that it is nice to see that the students have made progress before starting this new semester. The students are told to enjoy the food prepared while listening. Also, their Sylvania Academic Society has been resolved. Ed can hear the cruel things the other students are saying about him, about how he has the face to show up to the opening ceremony, and does he intend to continue attending the academy. But this guy is a jigga-chad, as he just ignores what they are saying and continues to eat his food. We see Bro has already finished several servings of food and still continues to eat. Bro must have been really tired of the fish back in the forest. Some students are just surprised to see him there in the school. But Ed knows his main goal is graduation, so he wouldn't let the criticisms bother his peace of mind. 3 girls are walking, and one of them tells the pink-haired girl that he is the second-year student who showed a sorry state during the entrance exam. The other adds that if they look closely, he feels a bit different and that he sure eats quite mannerly. Ed just continues to eat and thinks about the graduation. The girls continue to talk among themselves about the desserts made by the head chef of Ophelis at the table over there. So they should go and try some together and talk about what happened over the vacation. Suddenly, the pink-haired girl feels something strange about Ed, who is wishing for nothing to happen to him. The girl feels like Ed is a different person. Today's the first day of school at Sylvania. It's a new semester, and I'm excited to see the students in a new, improved form and to see the work that has been done by Sylvania Academic Society, a professor tells the students. However, on the very first day, Ed was called to the dean's office and nearly got expelled. He didn't expect the princess to tell the dean about him. Though from the way that cranky old man was talking with a smile on his face, it doesn't look like she said anything bad about him. So, somehow, Ed managed to avoid expulsion. He knows he needs to be careful, so the story doesn't stray from the original. Right now, Ed's combat ability rank is Novice Fighter. His specialty is the bow and arrow, and his proficiency in it is still level 1. Life skills honed for survival, and magic training appropriate for a student of the Faculty of Magic. To get the best of the combination of the two, there's no better weapon than a bow. As his life skills become more proficient, he is able to create good quality arrows. He'll be able to cast spirits or magic formulas to the arrows. Though, of course, spirit formulas are outside the realm of his talent. Ed becomes stunned as he suddenly notices a beautiful pink-haired girl sitting under Marilda's guardian tree. This beautiful waifu is Janica Failover, aka the best gal. Guys, I think we have found the first waifu of the manhwa. She is a second-year student like the protagonist, top of the class, and she is also a genius spirit sorcerer. She notices our dull MC and turns to look at the dumbfounded protagonist. Are you surprised that Ed is the funny boy the spirit Marilda was talking about? She quickly approaches Ed and introduces herself, explaining that she's in the same class as him and that he can call her Janica. Ed is still shocked by how she became so close to him in such a short time. He asks Ed if he's surprised that she knows him. Janica explains that this forest is the territory of Marilda, a high-ranking spirit. So she heard a lot about him from the spirit. Ed asks if the master of the forest told her about him. She explains that Marilda is somewhat nosy. With her attention all over the place, it's obvious she would know about an unwanted visitor, right? Ed wonders if he is an unwanted visitor. He guesses it's because he killed so many rabbits and also cut down so many trees. But Janica tells him not to sweat the small stuff. It's the natural order of things for forest creatures to catch and eat each other. Marilda isn't bothered by something like that either. Ed guesses that even the huge wild wolf has a tender heart. Janica is surprised that he knows Marilda takes the form of a huge wolf. And she says it's unexpected, right? She tells Ed there's something she wants to show him. She holds out her hands with a spirit in them and asks Ed if it isn't cute and adorable. Yesterday, she signed a contract with the spirit as soon as she saw it. She asks if Ed wants to try touching it. Ed, with a stunned look, wonders if what Janica is holding is really a spirit. Ed thinks that if he wants to be Janica's friend, he just needs to intervene at the right time, but that doesn't interest him right now. He tells her he doesn't understand what she means because he doesn't really see spirits, or rather, he can't. Is she surprised that he can't see spirits? Ed turns to leave and replies that yes. Anyway, he came to look for food, so he'll leave. Ed knows that only by following the original story can he gain an informational advantage, and that Janica Failover, someone of great importance in the original story, is someone he should never approach. As Ed walks away, Janica silently looks at him and remembers what he said about Marilda, that she was a huge, wild wolf with a tender heart. She tells Marilda that she was right about Ed being a fascinating guy. No matter how hard she thinks about it, she believes he really can't see Marilda. It turns out that Marilda was together with Janica this whole time, but Ed never saw her. Janica wonders who Ed really is. Besides, she tried so hard to be nice to him, but like the jigga-chad he is, he only answers with yes. She wonders what yes is supposed to mean. She's very frustrated with him because it's not like they'll never see each other again. She plans to find out who he really is from now on. The distance between the protagonist's shelter and the student area was extremely difficult. He barely made it in time, leaving at dawn and sprinting. Just by going to school, he's doing something ridiculous that increases his stats. If he wants to win the scholarship, he'll have to study harder. He writes on a stone slab with a burnt stick and borrows books from the student library. On his way home, he washes his sweaty clothes for the day. And we see that our boy has a stalker, as she's been following him all morning. Ed explains that even after all this, his day isn't over yet, but no, he'll have to check if he has enough firewood, drinking water, and meat for lunch tomorrow. That's why he only gets 4 hours of sleep. But what bothers him the most is his stalker. He gets angry with her and calls out to her to stop hiding and come out. How much longer is she going to keep following him? She's shocked that he knew she was following him, and he explains that it would be weird if he didn't know. He asks her if she doesn't know who he is. He's Ed Roth Taylor, the worst vandal in the world. Why does she keep hanging around him? She explains that, well, That's what other people think of him. He still hasn't decided what kind of person he is. OMG, this girl is just the best. May nothing bad happen to her. Ed just gets annoyed by her character, even though this is the type of person she is. She looks naive and dumb on the outside, but is really independent-minded. However, knowing what's in store for her in the future, he just can't respond to her with a refreshing smile on his face. Because Janica is the final boss of Act 1. She's the only character in the game who smiles at Ed, the scumbag low-level villain. He is upset because he doesn't want to go this far to get rid of her, but he must. Ed tells her that, since destiny brought them together, can she do him a favor? Our lovely waifu gets excited to do the favor. And Ed explains that as she can see, he is a mess. He has been disowned by his family and is in a pinch. So, can she give him money? This favor Ed just asks for leaves the poor girl literally petrified. Ed shamelessly claims he will pay it back, and besides, what are friends for, right? He's only borrowing it for a bit. So how much does she have to offer? Every year, Janica gets a scholarship for being at the top of the class. But that doesn't just signify her excellence. Her background is so poor that without a scholarship, she can't enroll or advance to higher graduation in the school. The daughter of a small ranch, Janica, her biggest weakness was money. She apologizes because she doesn't have money to lend him. But Ed wonders if he has successfully cut her out of his life. Wait, if you're enjoying this recap, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing and entertaining content like this. Now back to the story. 3 days later, Ed feels bad for what he did to Janica, but he doesn't want to get entangled with the important characters anymore. But Ed knows he needs to be careful so that the story doesn't stray from the original storyline. Ed arrives at his hut, but before he can enter, he is shocked to find someone sleeping in it. Ed is so shocked at who he is staring at because, in terms of importance, she is a character with an even heavier presence than Janica. The subject of the marvel of her classmates and even professors. The rare genius and most powerful character in the failed swordsman of Sylvania is Lucy Merrill. The sleeping genius wakes up due to the protagonist's arrival, and Ed wonders why the hell she is sleeping in his hut. In fact, what is she even doing in this mountain valley? Lucy tells him he's being so loud that she can't sleep. Ed wonders what he did wrong, but she tells him, not him but the wolf behind him, which is as big as a house. She says the wolf just keeps talking to him, and it is asking him to someday save Janica at all costs. 2 days pass, and Ed goes to work and wonders why Lucy is still at his camp. He hopes this doesn't lead to anything bad. But oh boy, how wrong he was, cause it didn't take long for him to realize how complacent a thought that was. He thinks about the current joint combat training happening today, which is literally a mock one-on-one battle exercise. To minimize the lethality as much as possible, the combat students mostly use fake weapons. Benevolent Princess Phenia, Golden Daughter Lortel, Spirit Sorcerer Janica, Slothful Lucy, and Wicked Clebius. He could go on, and they wouldn't end. Even so, the most important person is the protagonist of the original storyline after all. Failed swordsman Taylor. Ed is excited to see the protagonist match next. He already knows the results, so he didn't pay much attention to the matches. The winners of the duels in the joint combat training episode were the first-year students, the same as the protagonist, Taylor. Except for exactly one person, Janica, who is currently greeting Ed. He can't hide how annoyed he is to see her. He can't believe she's running all happily to him after going through the pathetic experience of him asking her for money. She tells him the list of matches is out. Ed thinks, unlike Lucy, who is from the cat family, there is no doubt Janica is from the dog family. Ed tells her he's not really interested, and she asks him why he's not curious about his match. Wait a minute, he says with a stunned look. He has to fight as well? He thinks to himself in the original storyline, he was expelled by now, so who's going to be his opponent? Ed looks at the paper and thinks no way. A black-haired guy appears and says he shall perform to the best of his ability. Now Ed feels it doesn't matter who he's going to fight against, he just needs to pay attention to Taylor. Though it was from a world beyond the screen, he lived as Taylor for so long. From miserable and vain bad endings to true endings that left long-lasting impressions. He completed that journey countless times among the countless routes. There wasn't a single route that was arduous and difficult. With a determined look, he's already decided he's taking care of his own life, but he's cheering for Taylor. By the way, just then an announcement is heard, asking for a student named Lucy. Please come up to the arena once she's ready for the practice match. He had no idea where Lucy was. She was sleeping under the back podium. She eventually wakes up and yawns. Someone screams from the crowd, saying she should go finish her duel first. Lucy is a first-year top-class student whose opponent is Taylor. The protagonist of this world, born as a swordsman, has never held a sword before in his life. Yet with the first swing of his sword, he cuts through Lucy's lightning-quick magic. The spell she had thought would obviously hit was blocked, catching her off guard as Taylor closed the distance. Surprised, Lucy hits him with a lightning strike, an intermediate-level lightning magic. Taylor is then completely overpowered by the reflexively cast magic spell, but she is disqualified for using intermediate-level magic, earning Taylor the honor of being the first to defeat Lucy. It was a legendary scene. Someone screams, "Okay, the match starts now." Taylor shouts, "Here I go." With just one spell, he finds himself on the floor. Everyone is shocked, and Lucy yawns. Taylor is shocked too, and thinks if it's over already, and says he can't win against the top of the class. No wonder. What's the point of running at a mage like her barehanded? Taylor's life was always a series of trials, a country bumpkin, and a failure of a student. An underachiever who hadn't gotten a single decent grade since he started school. A failure that wasn't acknowledged by anyone. While everyone jumped to conclusions regarding the match, in an outright wicked situation where they pitted him even in the midst of all this despair, Taylor never lost hope. Ed thinks to himself, "That's right, man. You can do it. Go." And here, Lucy will use lightning magic. Ed is shocked to see Lucy use wind magic to defend herself. As Taylor struggles to attack Lucy, he is suddenly blown away by the wind spirit, leaving Ed stunned and speechless by the unexpected results of the match. No lightning magic, but wind magic. Lucy is the victor, and the crowd goes wild. Ed stands shocked. Taylor lost. Taylor gets up to leave. Ed says that it's going to be a big loss and that Taylor can't be left alone. Protection of the wind is a continuous magic obtained through contracting with the high-class wind spirit Marilda. Using the power of the wind spirit automatically protects you from sudden attacks. As Ed tries to go after Taylor, he runs past Lucy, who asks him to give her the jerky. According to the scenario, Marilda and Lucy were originally two separate entities. Due to Lucy coming to his side, she ended up contracting with Marilda and becoming stronger because of it. The announcer announces that the next combat training will be between Ed and the respected Fenia. Lucy tells him that for the last time he should, but he didn't stop to talk to her. He kept saying Taylor had to win, picking up the sword, gaining confidence. However, in the end, lost because of the existence of Ed and Sylvania. Ed screams after Taylor, but he refuses to stop. He doesn't know if it has any meaning, but it's better than sitting still. Ed continues shouting after him, saying that his efforts will definitely pay off and that he shouldn't feel so down there's nothing to be embarrassed about. If Taylor's heart is completely broken, there's a high chance that he'll be forced to work hard in the end. He shouts again, saying that he should walk proudly because he did good and that his opponent wasn't a good match for him, and he shouldn't let something like that put him down. Ed thinks to himself that there will be many more hardships that will happen at the academy. And Ed knows Taylor should be the one to face it, not me. A man with a crown, which is probably the king. Fenia's father says something about Fenia being born with God's blessing. The first person to discover her innate insight was her father, Emperor Kloll. Her ability was in something given by some god. The life of a royal is riddled with endless intrigue and conspiracy. From within that dark abyss, she developed this sense herself as a means of self-protection. That's why the princess can be confident about her ability. There was an ugly abyss in the eyes of the imperial family that looked up to Fenia. Even when she saw through them, the princess of love lived as if she didn't know. Back to the present, Ed tells his opponent to go easy on him. The princess agrees and asks him to go easy on her as well. Ed knows that she had no choice but to stare straight into him. The The students around begin to gossip about what the protagonist told Taylor and how he yelled at him really persistently. They begin to make assumptions that he really wanted to make fun of someone who wasn't even able to do anything. Another says he probably wanted to look like a nice guy by cheering on the person he was picking on. Another extra thinks that his act was disgusting, and another NPC says that was the type of person he was from the start. She thinks to herself that their words are actually true. Ed was seen as someone who used his position to embarrass his juniors, and when it didn't work out the way he wanted, he was caught altering the test results. Shameless. He was sure to be like that in the past. But is that really all? Earlier, that was real. That desperation. Ed shouts, "Don't let something like this get you down." Now, the announcer announced that it was time for the combat to begin. Just as the combat starts, Phineas says that Ed confuses her and that she wants to get to a conclusion with the duel. "I'm coming," she tells him. To start with, one, she thinks to herself that the magic Ed can use is wind and fire. So how is he going to react to her attack? Shaking off everything while exchanging moves, a dramatic battle as a finale, getting rid of this mysterious man from her heart. But the princess is shocked to see her attack connect with Ed's body, even though he saw the attack clearly and could avoid it with ease. Ed crushes to the floor painfully and decides to accept defeat. The princess, clearly dissatisfied with what he said, asks Ed what he said. She knows Ed didn't even block after seeing the trajectory of the water ball. The extras in the arena begin making fun of Ed, claiming he's even worse than Taylor. After acting all cool, but was knocked out with just one attack. Some praise the princess for defeating him. Ed stands and approaches the princess, saying to her that it was a good match and that he learned a lot. The princess is confused as to what Ed is trying to do. She tries to figure out what he's up to because since coming onto the stage, he hasn't made eye contact with her even once. In fact, she notices that he never even had an interest in the duel in the first place. The announcer declares the princess the victor of this battle. Ed, running through the school, thinks to himself, is this really the time to be playing a duel? When coming in contact with Princess Phineas, it's best to ask carefully, not letting it affect the scenario. Because the princess is an important person in this scenario. But the person more important than the princess is the MC of the world, Taylor. He wonders where Taylor is at the moment. Someone calls him from behind. He turns around to see the princess, who seems to be out of breath because she chased him from the arena to this place. He asks what she was doing out here without her escorts. The princess furiously yells at him. Just who is he? He tries to explain that he's not sure what she's talking about, but if she's talking about the duel, then he learned a lot, so she doesn't need to lecture him anymore. She furiously continues. What does he mean by learning a lot? He didn't even intend to fight in the first place. He was just thinking about how to quickly get off the stage. The spoiled princess continues to rant to Ed about how she's already having a hard time keeping up with the class. But the fox-like merchant is only thinking about a way to take over the school, and Professor Glass' grumpiness isn't getting any better. All the while, the servants are always on about the way of royalty. She has a lot on her mind already, so who is he? To complicate her mind even more, Ed is surprised about how much pent-up frustration she has. He places his hands on her shoulder and tells her to take a deep breath and calm down. There is no need for her to get so worked up. He tries his best to calm her down, and she becomes embarrassed after the whole situation and tells him to please forget about what just happened. Ed agrees and tries to slip away while she isn't looking. The princess begins to talk again, saying to Ed that she has a bad habit. She can just bluntly ask questions, but she feels like she's constantly trying to guess and predict what's going on in their thoughts. It's probably due to living in the palace for so long. But all this time she was talking, Ed couldn't wait for this nagging girl to stop, so he can go and see Taylor. The princess finally asks seriously if Ed tried to cut off ties with his family because he knew of their dark side. The reason he picked on Taylor was because he needed a reason to be expelled from his family. Ed thinks the princess has made a pretty good deduction. Although it's mostly wrong, the thought of the Roth-Taylor family having a dark side was correct. But that's something she would look into far off in the future. It's too early right now. Ed tells her he doesn't know what she's talking about. With an angry face, she tells him that there's no way she is wrong, and it doesn't make sense logically. She then asks him what kind of words exactly was he yelling at Taylor. She again asks him why the hell he is cheering and supporting the person he has tried to get expelled, and did he never had a dislike for Taylor in the first place? Those are some sharp questions. So what? Ed says to himself that he just wanted to make fun of him, but tells her that since everyone hates him, cheering up Taylor will maybe make people see him differently or something like that. She tells him that anyone can tell that he's lying and that he should look into her eyes and tell her the truth. Insight is seeing through the lies. With a silly face, he tells her he's telling the truth. She detected that he was lying. Angrily, she screams at him. He still insists he's telling the truth. She probably doesn't have evidence yet. This goes on for a while. Above all, going with the original scenario is his only hope. She cools off and says it's fine and that she can't say anything because she has no evidence. So she tells him he can leave since he's been staring at the door from the start. He probably has something to take care of. He thanks her and takes his leave. This is the first time Fenia shows this side of hers. As someone who will affect the early scenario, she's already involved with so many people and events enough to give him a headache. He probably thinks it's his fault for being a new addition to the scenario. He thinks that how could his burden be compared to that of the princess? It might be a bit out of line. Before he leaves, he says to her that she looks worn out and it's important for her to pay attention to complicated politics and should try and relax. And that this isn't a place she will have to get herself worked out over every little thing. This is Sylvania Academy. The princess lived her life trying to see through everyone's lies, but that was the first time someone else saw right to her right. The princess looked genuinely touched by what Ed said to her. Later, Ed is seen running, still trying to find Taylor. What a troublesome situation he finds himself in. He lost too much time trying to comfort the princess. If Taylor gives up Ed's comfortable life, this world might even end. Ed finally finds Taylor, and as he's running to him, he is stopped by the childhood friend of Taylor, Isla Triss, the main heroine of the original storyline, who tells Ed not to come any closer and not to bother Taylor anymore. Please like and subscribe to this channel for more entertaining manhwa like this. Also, please comment on part 2 for more of this manhwa. The title will be in the description below. Thanks for watching and see you later.